This week on Life on Jupiter, we overcome some of the challenges of ocean passages.
Averted disaster again. Just worried about those waves. In about 20 minutes, we'll be crossing over into the shoal water. You excited, Sleepy?
And don't miss part 2 of Sundowners with Jamie.
Well, it's all starting to happen. We're only about less than half a mile from the bank and we see whales jumping. They're not big, they're maybe double the size of a dolphin. They seem to be black and white, and we've seen 3 or 4 jumping in different places. Like one was dead ahead of us, so maybe we'll see him soon, but I guess this wall from 9 kilometers up to 20 meters is a good thing for wildlife. Yeah, I already see the bottom. Well, sort of an anticlimax. I mean, the water's just a nice azure blue, and you can see some bottom features. You see the sand and the rock, or dark patches. But yeah, I sort of been looking forward to this all day. At least we saw the whales on the edge. That was nice, but not up close. Not close enough for a camera. You just have to trust me on that. Anyway, we've got about 20 miles of this 30-something meter water before the next deep. And then there's another bank, but we'll be hitting that at night time. So today, 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. and got one more full day tomorrow. Saying we'll be arriving there probably around midnight tomorrow, if the wind stays. Time for my shift. Daylight is broken. Who's sleeping on the job?
Just a little bit.
Averted disaster again. The same thing happened yesterday. The screecher furler, there's a pin, like a quick release pin down the bottom. That's part of the furler. I can't change it for anything better. Keeps opening, and This is why you should have a good look around the boat at every fitting at least twice a day to check for things that are about to go wrong. So managed to furl the screecher without it coming undone anymore. Now we're just going to drop it down, and I'm going to have to wire it closed, I think. Anyway, I'll drop it.
The last time the screecher tack separated from the prodder, we lost the sail into the South Atlantic Ocean, under the boat, and then tore it as we tried to retrieve it. We don't want this happening again.
That's it.
Yeah, and it's come open twice now. I'm going to have to lock wire around here.
Yeah.
Well, the lock wire didn't really stay on, so a cable tie suited the job better.
Downwind sailing, huh? Relaxing. But don't be fooled, it's not my favourite. It's actually one of the slowest points of sail. I mean, I guess upwind would be the most uncomfortable, you know, motion-wise and fairly slow. But downwind would be the next slowest. Do you know about apparent wind? Apparent wind is what the boat experiences. It's the wind measured on the masthead, for example. The faster we go downwind, the less apparent wind we get. And it's apparent wind that drives the sail. It's the wind that the sails feel. So if we, like today, we've got a 15 knot wind right behind us, we can typically only do half of that. We're sitting on about 7 knots, sometimes surfing 8 or 9, and then we come back in the surge, and the other end of the surge, and we're back to 6. You know, so typically you can only do about half the wind speed when you are downwind. That's frustrating, because 15 knots, if we were on a reach, we'd be doing 10, 11. Now that's nice, that's getting somewhere, you know, but we're stuck on 7. It's a little frustrating, but it's sort of comfortable because you're going with the swell. Just pitching, really, just pitching like this. Whereas if we're on a beam reach, we'd be rolling like this, which is a bit uncomfortable. I do like to get somewhere quickly, and we can't do that today. This whole trip is dead downwind. That's why we have big goose wing headsails, you know. We almost made it without motoring. All the winds dropped off. At about 60 miles to go, the wind just stopped. So we'd like to get there today and check-in today, so motoring now. 44 miles to go. So about 7 hours, and we'll be there.
Pancake. The best pancake in the world. Oh, mama. Yummy.
So good. Oops. Don't want copyright.
Yeah.
No. So we are at Bahamas.
Is it?
Great in Agua,
Yeah.
but we haven't
Touched the ground.
checked in yet. So it's lunchtime. We've got 5 knots of wind, and we're doing 3.5, 4 knots. And we had the engine running for like 6 hours. That's enough. We got a little bit of wind. We're gonna get there before dark. I'm happy with that. So yeah, another 3 hours to go. Then we can drop the anchor. I got some beers in the fridge cooling down. We got sausages thawing out. We're gonna have a relax afternoon, evening, and deal with check-in tomorrow. I'm sleepy.
Sorry, I'm
Doing? She's playing her cooking game. How about go down there and do some
This is
cooking
more
game?
fast. See, I can cook
I
fast.
can't smell it. It doesn't smell very good.
Well, it wasn't quite the welcome that we expected. But it's always good to have a freshwater rinse to wash off the salt. Welcome to the Bahamas. Hey guys, so I think I promised you that we were going to talk about the 4 key areas that you need to go cruising full time. So the first one I mentioned was money. So what about money? How much do you need? How much to buy the boat? Let's talk about that in the boat section. But start with how much do you need on a yearly basis to cruise the world. So when we started cruising 2 and a bit years ago, we left with the intention of it being 1 year, and then we would go back to work. All I had was my savings in the bank. I have no investments, just some cash in the bank, and then I would go back to work after a year and think about the future. Of course, COVID hits. Can't go back to work. There is no work for my sort of work. We just keep going. So we've been 2 and a bit years now, and it seems that we have spent about $50,000 a year. And that's a lot, $1,000 a week. But a lot of the expense has actually been this YouTube channel, which, ultimately, hopefully, sometime down the road will make us a little money. That's our goal, anyway. So I don't think ours is a good example of what it costs to cruise because, as I say, it's been, I'd say at least half spent on YouTube channel, camera gear, drones, computers, data. Data costs a lot of money in some places, the Caribbean. What it costs you depends on what vessel you've chosen, what state of repair it's in, and the gear on board, and how likely it is to break down and you need to repair it. So we'll talk about vessel choice in number 3. Let's just talk about ongoing costs and the extremes of that. As I say, if you'd chosen a floating apartment, perhaps a condo cat or, something with all the bells and whistles, then maybe your maintenance will be higher. You have to repair those things. You don't want the value of the boat to drop, so you keep that stuff in a good state of repair. Could cost you a lot of money. Compared to a friend of ours, which we met him in Padang, Sumatra, Indonesia. He's from Texas on a 28-foot mono. I haven't asked him, but I would guess his boat cost him 20 grand, maybe less, probably less. And I would be guessing his yearly budget would be around 20 grand. 20 grand? What's that, 400 a week? That's a lot of beer and food in a lot of the parts of the world. Asia, Africa, that's a lot of beer and food, $400 a week. And his maintenance cost would be pretty low. On a small boat, you can do most things yourself, obviously. On a small boat, you've got a lot less to fix. So these are probably the extremes with regard to the cost of upkeep. Another extreme cost saving that you can make is if you DIY your maintenance. We do as much as we possibly can on Jupiter. And the last time I've hired a guy to do work on Jupiter was some welding, because I didn't have any welding gear. And to go out and buy the gear and then learn how to weld the aluminium, which is a bit demanding. You need a lot of practice. It just didn't make sense cost-wise. So we hired a guy in Richards Bay in South Africa, and he did some welding for us, and it turned out good. Otherwise, DIY everything. Do it yourself. When you look at wages that I've noticed in boatyards, can be somewhere between $50 and $100 an hour. That's just not within my budget, so I do everything myself. I'm sure a job will come along which I can't do, and I have to hire some professional. But you know what? I've been burnt in the early days, probably, 20 years ago. I've been burnt by hiring professionals. There's a lot of professionals in boating, in yachting, and a lot of guys that don't know what they're doing, but they tell you that they know what they're doing, and they stuff it up, cost you more, or they rip you off in some way. Don't do a good job. So that's why I originally got into doing everything myself, because if you're going to f it up, you might as well f it up yourself. and learn from it, and then, you can do it next time. Another choice that is yours to make about how much it costs to go cruising is marinas. We don't do them. We have done marinas only when absolutely necessary. And one was Cape Town, South Africa, because the weather was so severe that you don't want to be on the hook with the wind changing constantly. And we had gusts. We had constant 40 knots for days, and we had gusts up to 70 knots just in the time we were there. So we were thankful to be in a marina. That was the last time we were in a marina for any length of time. We stop now and again in a marina, but mostly the purpose is to pick up packages so that we send shipping packages, parcels, shopping to the marina, and then of course you got to stay one night just so you can pick up your package. The rest of the time we're on the hook, and that's a extreme cost saving. The cost of Jupiter in a marina is, well, a catamaran is typically 2 times the cost of a monohull because you're taking up 2 spaces, and that's even if you're on an N berth, they charge you that. An N berth is, doesn't matter how wide you are, but typically $100 to $150 a night. So we don't do marinas when we can have, only when absolutely necessary. So I would hazard a guess to say it costs you between $20,000 and $50,000 a year. There's obviously no roof to it. There's no ceiling. Let's say, let me rephrase this. It'll cost you from about $20,000 upwards, depending on your choices. Can you make money on the way? Now, I thought about this long and hard, how I could make money on the way. You can make a little bit here and there if you've got some skills. And if you're a DIY guy, you got some skills. You can offer those skills to other cruisers. And I've found it's about half and half. There's half and half DIYers and get a serviceman for everything is. There's at least, I'd say 50% of people, I'm just ballparking here, but probably 50% of people don't do any repairs. They pay someone to do it. It could be as simple as scrubbing the bottom. Antifouls a bit, blah. Need someone to scrub the bottom. We've got friends that hired and paid $300 to scrub the bottom of their boat. And why don't you just do it yourself? $300 is a lot of money for us. So I would have charged $250. Could have got $250 in an afternoon's work. It could be, fixing things. It could be trading things. Ideally, I sort of thinking if you had some sort of online business, that would be ideal. I don't really have anything like that, but we're sort of working on it with the YouTube thing. Maybe one day it will cover the costs of the camera gear and drones and computers that we need to buy. One day we'll make some money from that. Always a challenge to keep good internet coverage though, when you're sailing. And it's expensive too. You can pay a lot of money for data in different countries. Some places is cheap, but some is not. We also sold flags. Before we left China, we bought up about 400 cheap screen-printed national flags, which were relevant to the countries we were visiting. So we had, across the Indian Ocean, we had flags for Africa, for Caribbean, and we got some Mediterranean. We haven't gone there yet, but we got a lot of flags for them, and across the Pacific. So China was a good place to buy them cheaply, and we got a bunch, and we've been selling them at $5 each. You don't want to pay $20 for a flag when you're only visiting that country for a week. So I thought there was a demand for cheap flags. Hasn't helped us much, but it's probably covered the cost of our flags, so we're happy with that. So that's covered the two main questions, I guess, is how much do you need to go cruising? And can you make money on the way? If you've got any more questions about it, drop them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Next week we'll talk about the second item on the list, and that is time. But not just time, because that seems fairly simple, but timing with your cruising. So, we'll see you then. Cheers.